On the Dallas Opera Network, you're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it's America's talk radio show about opera. It's Opera Box Score. I'm George Cedarquist. I'm joined this week by Oliver Camacho, Weston Williams, and Ashley Hardgrave. All right, this week, Chalk Talk, we take a look at the Metropolitan Opera's recently announced 22-23 season, including 5 David McVicar shows, 4 new productions, 3 Traviata casts, 2 Yoncheva role debuts, and a partridge in a pear tree, plus 2-minute drill. Yeah, there's definitely one artist who won't be appearing on stage at Lincoln Center this year. You're watching on TDO. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, whole thing. Stitcher, Spotify, you click follow. Apple Podcasts, hit that plus sign. You can also send us a voice memo. You can email us your hot takes, operaboxscore@gmail.com. Get your voice heard. Get that OBS beer coaster and OBS lapel pin just for sharing your own hot take. Oliver Camacho, he's got that lapel pin right on the spit guard there.
Don't you want it, people? Don't you want to have one of these for yourself? See how handsome it is?
For those of you who are listening, the unsettling sound you're hearing is Oliver stroking it very seductively.
Gently caressing his OBS lapel
Weston
pin.
Williams, don't touch your microphone, whatever you do.
Oh, absolutely not. I learned my lesson by mistake last time when I literally one time broke a microphone live on the air, which was not ideal, but that's just live radio, baby, and we roll with it.
Ashley, you may touch your microphone.
Thank you. I'll do it right now. Can we talk for a hot second about Brittany Griner and how she's been detained in Russia for weeks and we're just now hearing about it? She's a WNBA player. She was caught with hashish oil cartridges in her luggage at a Russian airport. And the reason that she was in Russia is because she plays over there in the off season. She's currently being detained. We have no idea if or when or how we're ever going to be able to get her out. But I think one of the more important things, besides getting her home, is the idea that WNBA players are playing overseas in their off season because they make more money over there than they do here in the States in the WNBA. She makes at the max for the WNBA, which is around $228 here for her season. She's making over $1 million playing for the Russian team that she plays for in the off season.
Wow. 4 times the amount in Russia
Wild.
that she's being paid in the WNBA.
Yep.
Yeah. Mike Krzyzewski, the coach of Duke basketball, retires at the end of this year. The regular season is over for Duke. Of course, they will be in the March Madness playoffs. He coached for 42 years at
Jeez.
Duke, which is utterly insane until you realize that someone like Placido Domingo, regardless of what you think of him, has been singing for over 60 years. I was wowed by 42 years in basketball, and then I had to put that in perspective.
Did you see the clip of him after the game when he was addressing the crowd and he was telling them the performance in the game was unacceptable?
That's what you call a competitor. Let's talk some opera.
Chalk Talk on Opera Box Score.
The Metropolitan Opera, that's in New York City, by the way. It's released its 22-23 season a few weeks ago. We're just getting to it now, ready to do a deep dive and a big breakdown for you. 22 shows on the slate. Matt Cummings helped us break this down, and then
we will
the show tonight.
We will get. I know, Matt. We're happy to have Ashley. It's been a while. But let's just go through this chronologically because there's 22 to get through, and we'll try to talk about the talking points of each one. Starting in September, the season opener is Medea by Cherubini, an opera that Matt stands. If somebody can add Matt's comments here, but it's a David McVicar production. That's the first one. It will be conducted by Carlo Rizzi. It will be available as an HD broadcast. And it stars Sandra Radvanovsky, and we are all Sandra in the Sandra hive, as Matt likes to say.
And it's also going to have Janai Brugger, who is another friend of the show that we deeply, deeply stan.
And Matthew Polenzani, another friend of the show.
Yay!
And if you're playing the I was going to say, if you're also playing the David McVicar drinking game, go ahead and take a shot
Got it.
because this is just the first of many.
Okay, moving on to the Hours, a Kevin Puts opera, not a Philip Glass opera, as you might have thought.
Yeah, I thought that was
yeah.
weird.
Yeah,
Because the score is so iconically Philip, you know, and I mean, no hate to Kevin Puts whatsoever, but I think it's interesting that they did not. Well, maybe they did seek him out, and Philip Glass said no. But I think it's interesting. The director though, Phelan McDermott, love him.
from Akhenaten,
from Akhenaten and Satyagraha fame. Again, Glass, what are you doing? It's gonna have I believe.
And wasn't he the director of Addams Family as well?
Yes, he was.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's gonna. It's gonna have Renee Fleming, Kelly O'Hara, and Joyce DiDonato all together having a good time, which I think is going to be kind of fun, and I think it'll be honestly a highlight of the season. I think it's again, no hate to Philip Glass, but I am excited to hopefully see it if I can.
Kevin
I
is
concur.
an effective modern contemporary composer, of course, best known for Silent Night, which came out in the early 2010s. This is going to be a great production.
So Matt
It
says
sure
Kevin
is.
Puts is an interesting composer. His music can be really effective and modern, but also pleasant and easy to listen to. So
Yeah.
Matt is excited about this one.
I am too. This actually is the one that I'm the most excited about all season. I actually might make the trip to New York just to go and see this. Not just because of the three ladies up top. Kelly O'Hara, someone was like, it's her Met debut. I'm like, actually, it's not. She debuted in 2014, but I digress. But I'm also really excited to see some of the other roles. Brandon Sidell, Kyle Kettleson, Sean Panikar,
Love
John
Brandon.
Holiday,
Sean.
Kathy Kim.
That's
I'm
right,
so
yeah.
excited to see Kathy Kim. It's going to be I'm really jazzed about this.
So moving on to Fedora by Umberto Giordano,
For all you hat lovers out there.
which will open up New Year's Eve and will be available as an HD broadcast. Sonia Yoncheva making her, well, I'm sure she sung it somewhere else, but this is the first time that she's singing it at the Met because this is the first time the Met's done this opera in 25 years, so it's got to be her first time at the Met. So Piotr Bachawa, Rosa Feola, Artur Ruchinsky, an amazing baritone, and Sonia Yoncheva. So a great quartet for an opera I know very little about except that it's veristic. Does Matt have some comment about this one?
Yeah, he's mostly commenting on Yoncheva in Fedora. He says it's interesting to see her taking on a role so associated with past it divas, since it doesn't stretch the high range. He says he's a fan of hers, but her recent singing has been really uneven. So we'll see what happens.
This is David McVicar production number 2.
Oh,
Oh,
Okay.
shot.
drink.
Okay.
Moving on to a show in February, Wagner's Lohengrin, conducted by Yannick Nézet-Séguin, which will premiere February 26th. The choreography was originally going to be the Bolshoi, right? But then
Yes.
they decided that they have to go a different direction. So we don't know what's going to happen with that choreography. I didn't know there was a big choreography number in there, but
They're probably doing like the French version or something.
yeah. So this will be
Tannhäuser. I mean,
this
oh,
will
no.
star. This will star Piotr Bachawa in the title role, and
Which is exciting.
Yes.
Gurky. Very excited about Gurky.
Christina Gerke singing the role of Ortrude. There will also be Günther Groisbach, my husband, as King Heinrich.
So good.
And Elsa will be split between Tamara Wilson, friend of the show, and Alina Stikina. Any other comments here from the Peanut Gallery?
I mean,
Matt's been wanting to hear Bachala sing it live since he did it with Tillaman. Gerke will almost certainly steal that show, as that character tends to do. The rest of the cast will put up a fight. Come on, guys, we are Gerke stands in this household. We know
Yes,
who's going to
we
lead
are.
this whole thing.
Moving on to April, a Met premiere of Terrence Blanchard's Champion,
yes.
which stars my friend Ryan Speedo Green. He's not really my friend, but I met him, and I'd like to think that we're friends. But
is that a drink
but-
too? I don't know.
yeah,
Not-
but I mean,
not yet.
I forget what happened last month, but something about Ryan Speedo Green being named like artist in residence or something like that. That the Met is trying to make Ryan Speedo Green into the next big star. He's doing fine without the Met's help, but he definitely has been chosen by Peter Gallup as like, we want to
Right.
give you an encore. You're gonna sing Amaze Me, and you're gonna have to sing it twice. So
Yeah.
except that basses don't have to sing that aria. LaTanya Moore is gonna be in that show, and
Always welcome.
You were commenting, Weston, about this is another Terrence Blanchard opera, two in a row.
Yeah, well, on the one hand, I think it's amazing because the Met has a track record of whenever they do a progressive new opera, they tend to be like, that's enough for a while. I think of the Met did the first opera the Met did by a woman was in 1906 by Ethel Smythe. And then not again until Sariao did it in 2015, whenever that was. So I think having two in a row is great. I would encourage the Met to keep the POC composers going, but maybe not do Terrence Blanchard, no hate to him whatsoever, a third time. I think it'd also be interesting for the Met to kind of explore some underappreciated operas by Black composers who have never had their stuff put up on a big stage before, like Harry Lawrence Freeman or someone like that. They have the resources for it. It helps create that sense of continuity so that it's not just a new phenomenon. I remember a lot of somewhat uninformed takes for Fire Shut Up in My Bones, saying people incorrectly saying that Fire Shut Up in My Bones is the first opera by a Black person, which is not remotely true. And so I would like the Met to help maybe try to expand that a little bit. But I am excited to see it. It's a sports opera about boxing, very on brand for us. This is probably the one opera I'm most excited for this season.
It's going to be on the Live in HD in April of next year. Of course, James Robinson directing this piece. He's the artistic director at Opera Theater of St. Louis. I will say, when you read the press release from the Met, it says, quote, Director James Robinson oversees the staging. So, hey, here's a little pro tip. If you want to really belittle a director, say that they oversee the staging. Right? Because that's not actually what we do.
The singers, they kind of direct themselves, but he just makes sure. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Ashley.
He's just making sure nobody falls down. No, everybody in the cast for Champion is very exciting to me. LaTanya Moore, Speedo Green, Owens, Meredith Arwoody's going to be there. Very excited.
So moving on to May, we have two Nathalie Stutzman shows. She's conducting Magic Flute and Don Giovanni. The first up is Don Giovanni, and I'm sure, George, you have something to say about the production. It's the Ivo van Hove.
Ivo van Hove is one of the most brilliant theater and opera directors working on this planet right now. He's been doing it for a number of years, of course. It's not surprising. It's going to be live in HD. Thank you, Lord, for doing that. I wish I could go to New York and see this. I will tell you right now, it will be abstract and it will blow thy mind.
You say. So Ying Fang is singing Zerlina in that production, and we stand friend of the show. And then in the Magic Flute, Catherine Lewick. She's one of my personal heroes. Remember we talked about her when we were talking about body image issues, and she just also is an amazing singer. Erin Morley.
She doesn't have those issues. She shut down the people who were trying
exactly,
to get them to her.
Two friends of the show in this show as well. Erin Morley as Pamina and Larry Brownlee as Tamino. Okay, moving on to, and that is also in HD in June.
That's the Magic Flute production. Now, here's the thing, right, is that on the Met's count, that would be allowed as a new production. Of course, that production has actually been Dutch National Opera, English National Opera, and the X Festival starting back in 2013.
Perhaps it'd be better called a lightly used production.
Well, this is basically the opera. Okay, imagine this, right? So, you have a carton of milk in your fridge that has been there since 2013. It's unopened, but would you drink it?
It's new to you.
I mean, it's cheese at this point, and it might taste good again, so,
So some revivals, Ida Mineo in September with Michael Spires, who I'm a big fan of. And I believe
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, Ying Fang is singing Ilya, and Kate Lindsay, my girlfriend / boyfriend, in the role of Ida Monte. So I would definitely go to see that, listen to that. Then we have a Western choice.
This is all me, baby. Lady Macbeth of Matensk. I'm so, with Eva Marie Westbrook and Brandon Jovanovic. And I love this opera so much. It is not done nearly enough. Friend of the show, I believe, Carrie Lynn Wilson, she's conducting this, which is interesting because it feels a little bit, what's the word when you put family members in positions of power?
Yeah.
Incestuous, nepotistic.
Nepotism, that's the word. Thank you. Just because, she is Peter Gelb's wife. But I do think that she is a great choice for it, nepotism aside. And I'm very, very excited to see it. I never saw the original staging, so I don't know anything about it, but I love the opera so much.
This is the Graham Vick production. What's interesting looking at the production photos is that this is not the graphic, bloodthirsty, sexually explicit Lady Macbeth that I, for one, would like to see.
So a little bit of news in the October production of Tosca. Angela Gheorghiu returning. We'll see. She's famous for her cancellations, but that is a big role for her. A really star role for her. And I'd be interested to hear her, come back to the Met in a diva role like that. Peter Grimes is going to be returning. That is going to have Alan Clayton in the title role. Nicole Carr. Did she win? Yeah, she beat Yvonne Kenny in the Fiordiligi face-off. So now it's time for her to see if she can really deliver the goods. And Peter Grimes coming up. Then La Traviata has three casts.
Just on Peter Grimes, what is so gorgeous about this production is that it's directed by John Doyle. You might know John Doyle from doing a number of Broadway musicals where the actors also play the instruments. That's kind of his thing. Looking at the production photos for this Peter Grimes, it is just so incredibly gorgeous. The lighting designer is Peter Mumford. Is this on HD, this one?
Nope.
I think they did it on HD a couple years ago, though. Yeah. I can't remember.
And I forgot to mention Laura Wilde as one of the Ellen Orfords, and she is from the Ryan Opera Center, and she's outstanding. Moving on, as we said, Traviata will have three casts. Nadine Sierra, Ermanolo Iaho. I think that's the first time Ermanolo Iaho is coming to the Met. I'm not sure, but she's a big deal in Europe, and we're finally getting a chance to hear her over here. And Angel Blue, very excited about that.
Yeah.
Moving on to more revivals. Don Carlo, not Don Carlos.
Yeah.
Don Carlo with an O. The Italian version, the much, much shorter version. Just
if you couldn't
4.5
sit through
hours
the
as
one,
opposed to 5 hours.
if you couldn't sit through the one this season, you're going to have a little bit of a break this time. I think it's very interesting that they're doing kind of back to back. I don't know what the function of that is, but they kind of did it, this season with doing the other version of Boris Godunov after recently doing the 1879 version, and they did 1862. I'm getting the years wrong, but I don't know what it is. But they're like, what if we did it again, but slightly different? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll still see it.
This is the David McVicar production number 3.
Up.
Shot. There it is.
Okay, take it right. So that's going to have Russell Thomas, friend of the show, and Angela Mead, as well as Anita Rachvelishvili.
Yes.
And Petra Mate. And Anna Tropico was supposed to be singing in this production. We'll see if she's invited back by then.
Whoops.
We'll see.
That's a no.
And my husband, Gunther Grosbach, as King Philip. Moving on, Rigoletto coming back with Quinn Kelsey and Rosa Fiola, which they did an outstanding job.
Already yay. Already yay.
Creating an opportunity for Benjamin Bernheim to make his Met debut. Friend of the show, yes, please.
And this is not the Vegas Rigoletto.
No, this is the one that they just did.
Exactly.
This is the 20s, 30s Rigoletto.
It's not nearly as exciting, and I have no interest in seeing this.
More revivals. Aida, starring LaTanya Moore and Michelle Bradley. We are getting Michelle Bradley this month in Tosca. Actually, the opening night is this weekend, so I cannot wait to hear her. I remember her singing Clotilda in Norma a couple years ago and thinking she's going to steal the show. This Clotilda has like 3 lines, and she's that good. So very excited about hearing Michelle Bradley.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they say they were going to retire this production? I feel like they were making a big deal a couple years ago how like it was the last time they were ever going to do it, and they're just dragging out of mothballs for the 45th time.
Well,
Aida? Okay.
if they did retire it, they would also be cutting out the only female director on the entire Met roster for this season.
That's true.
Sonia Frizzell was the director of this Aida. Is this something that appeals to me? Not particularly. But for the Met to have 22 productions
And only
one female director, do the math. The Met has done well in getting women and people of color on the podium. What are they doing in terms of getting those same people behind the tech table and on that stage bowing at the curtain call on opening night?
Amen.
Agreed. I will say though that the cast for this is it's going to be a good time no matter which day you go, because you've got LaTanya Moore, Michelle Bradley. You've also got Rash Filashvili coming back to do some Amneris. You've got Quinn Kelsey, friend of the show, coming back as Almanzaro. Yay, Christian Van Horn. So like you're going to have a good time when you go see this.
They also are going to do the holiday version of the Magic Flute. I assume is a different production than the Simon. What's his name?
It's the Julie
McBurney.
Taymor joint.
Yes. So, and that will have friend of the show Solomon Howard singing Zarastro.
Oh, nice.
In January, revival of Elixir of Love, which will feature friend of the show Amanda Woodbury, and Golda Schultz will be, and Alexandra Kursak. So there's 3 Adinas for this Elixir, and Javier Camarena alternating with Xavier Anduaga. I don't know who this guy is, but those are the Nemorinos. It's the Bartlett Share production. Then coming up later on is Dialogues of the Carmelites with a fire cast. What's going on here? What's your reaction here?
It's fine. I'm not thrilled. It's not that I'm not thrilled. I think this is fine. This is not one that excites me.
Why?
Mostly because I don't really care that much about dialogue.
Okay.
If I'm honest.
Because Eileen Perez and Sabine Devier making her Met
Great
debut.
singers.
Yeah.
I love Eileen Perez. I think it's a great choice for her.
Jamie Barton singing Mère Marie and Alice Coote as Madame de Coissy. I'm excited about this. I love this show, and I think that it's very powerful. But
it desperately needs a different production, though.
Okay.
This is the John Dexter production, which is not super exciting.
Well, Matt says this dialogues cast is fire, and that production is so incredible. So,
Matt,
this is where we could have had a nice debate, but Matt, you're not here, so we lose.
So we win.
Norma coming back in February in that David McVicker production.
Yay! Said nobody ever.
With Sonia Yoncheva making her Met role debut in this. I believe this is her role debut in this. So I mean, she's singing Fedora and Norma, which are 2 of the most diva-ist roles there can be. So
great season for Sonia.
And Michael Spires will be singing Poglione.
And what a surprise! It's all grayscale and monochrome.
In March, a revival of Falstaff, which will have Eileen Perez as Alice Ford and Ralice. And
I support that.
Remember, I think we talked about. Christine Gerke said that she loves Alice Ford because she never gets a chance to be funny on stage. But here's
a little side note here. This is the Robert Carson production, which has definitely been around the block. But when I was at the Merilla program, I directed on the same set that they are using for the.
That's also a drink.
The Rosenkavalier.
One more. Shout out to Jennifer Johnson-Cano, who just finished a really beautiful Beethoven 9 here in Chicago with the symphony. She's going to be singing Meg in that production.
The Rosenkavalier comes back with Lisa Davidson as the Marshallin, Isabel Leonard as Octavian, that's her role debut, and the return of Erin Morley as Sophie with Gunther Grosbach. God, it's a good year for Gunther.
Yeah.
And that's the Robert Carson production.
My gosh.
I love this cast. I'm so excited for it.
And the design on this is so gorgeous. Each act has such a clear vision. Actually, Oliver, I think you and I went to see this together, met in HD some years ago.
Really?
Is that possible?
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that moment really meant something to you.
Yeah,
like
it really stuck in his head.
La Boheme coming back, the Zeffirelli with Eleonora Burato and Stephen Costello. And there's also a cast that includes Charles Casanova and Susanna Phillips making a promotion from Musetta to Mimi, which is interesting.
This,
Yes, it
this,
is.
This is the Zeffirelli production of Bohem, which surely
Speaking of
has to
productions that have been around the
nobody's-
Here's
block.
the thing, though. Later on in the show,
that's your
you're
old
going
milk
to
in your
hear
fridge. So.
about, thank you, of a very different take on La Boheme. We're going to get to that in the 2-minute drill, but keep your ears open.
And finally, the Flying Dutchman, Jaap van Zweden, will make his highly anticipated Met debut with Tomasz Koznecki as the Dutchman and Elsa Vandenhever as Senta.
Francois Girard's staging, I believe.
And Ashley wants to just shout out to the web team at the Met.
And by shout out, I mean I want to offer my services for design because what you've done is hot garbage. Put the shows in chronological order for when they're appearing. Don't put them in alphabetical order on your site. Do you honestly think anybody's going to be able to read and interpret that? Peter, call me. This is ridiculous. I know you got a lot going on. You're actually trying to be a good person, and I appreciate that. But my God, we got to get this web team under control. We have a meeting next Thursday.
They are a repertoire. I mean, what am I saying, George?
Yeah, Stagione, a repertoire house. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so they do shows many times throughout the season, so it's not just
don't
one
care.
run.
Show them in order.
I disagree with you, actually. This appeals to my obsessive compulsive nature to have these listed alphabetically. Although, like, I'm trying to figure out if L'Elisir d'Amore should be under L or E. Yeah. Lots to talk about, lots to enjoy at the Met. Wow, that is an overwhelming season. Let's hope it all happens. Feels like it's gonna happen.
Fingers
right?
crossed.
Feels like we're gonna do a thing. Okay.
Don't say that out loud, George.
I think I just cursed it. I'm going to talk a little bit of sports before we get into the 2-minute drill. Ashley, someone is on your SH1T list.
Yeah, Ivan Kuliak, a Russian gymnast. He sucks. He went to compete, and when he was on the podium at a World Cup event in Doha, Qatar, he was, while standing next to a Ukrainian gymnast, wearing a taped onto his uniform Z symbol for war. So to review, Russian gymnast wearing war symbol next to Ukrainian gymnast on a podium at a competition. He sucks.
He does suck. The Major League Soccer season has started here in the U.S. So Charlotte Football Club, Charlotte, North Carolina, has a brand new soccer team. They play in the Carolina Panthers Stadium, and they have set the new Major League Soccer attendance record, 74,479. That was for their home opener, which they lost to the LA Galaxy. So basically 75,000 people. I mean, those are like Premiership League soccer attendance numbers. You know, Manchester United can pull 70 or 80,000. Chelsea can pull 80,000. For a Major League Soccer team to pull that is incredible. By comparison, the Fire had its own personal home opener record set at 25,000 on the same day. What I will say in the Fire's defense is that they have thankfully gotten rid of the interim logo that they had. They're now on their third logo. The first one was amazing. The current one is amazing. The second one basically looked like someone had dropped a hot dog with ketchup and mustard condiments on it face down onto a mud puddle.
And as a Chicagoan, your big objection was the ketchup.
Abso-freaking-lutely. That is a problem.
Yes, that logo was a real problem. 2-minute drill, not a problem. It is right now.
This just in, the 2-minute drill.
All right, listen up. Here's everything you need to know about what happened in Operaland this week.
We are recording on March 7th, and all news, operatic or otherwise, is dominated by the crisis in Ukraine. As global condemnation of Russia's attack on Ukraine grows, cultural institutions have moved with surprising speed to put pressure on Russian artists to distance themselves from Vladimir Putin. A collision of arts and politics that's forcing organizations to confront questions about free speech. Arts administrators are finding themselves in the midst of one of the most politically charged issues in recent decades, with little in the way of experience to draw on.
Stating that the company will not engage with artists who support Putin, Anna Netrebko has been replaced by Ukrainian soprano Lyudmila Monastyrska in an upcoming Metropolitan Opera production of Turandot. It is a great artistic loss for the Met and for opera, said Peter Gelb. Anna is one of the greatest singers in Met history, but with Putin killing innocent victims in Ukraine, there was no way forward.
In what is probably highly eloquent in the original German, Jonas Kaufmann has joined other marquee artists like Sonia Yoncheva, Nina Muchaija, Anita Rashvelishvili, and Pyotr Bechawa in speaking out against Putin's war on Ukraine. Appointed as a UN ambassador last fall, the German tenor goes on to invoke Benjamin Britten's pacifism, Theresienstadt composer Viktor Ullmann, and somehow Visi Darte? If any one of our listeners has been able to make sense of this obtuse anti-war statement, please summarize for us and we'll send you a free OBS lapel pin.
Meanwhile, Teatro alla Scala has announced that Maria Agresta will take over all performances of Adriana Lecouvreur from aforementioned problematic Russian anti-vax soprano Netrebko, who withdrew from the production. However, La Scala has added additional performances for tenor Yusuf Avazov, aka Mr. Netrebko, replacing Freddie De Tomaso, who tested positive for COVID.
More Met support for Ukraine continues, with the Met Chorus singing the Ukrainian national anthem before the February 28 performance of Don Carlos, the recent announcement of a March 14 benefit concert for Ukraine, and Peter Gelb meeting with Ukraine's ambassador to the United Nations, Sergei Kizlytsia. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, the Opera House has fallen victim to Russian missiles. Rockets destroyed multiple buildings in Freedom Square, the cultural heart of Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city.
Michigan Opera Theater is changing its name after more than 50 years as a Detroit cultural anchor. Detroit Opera will be the new name when the company returns to the Detroit Opera House after more than 2 years for the April 2nd premiere of La Boheme.
In trade news, the Edinburgh International Festival has announced the appointment of Nicola Benedetti as its director-designate. She'll become festival director in October and will be the first woman and the first Scot to hold the position since the festival started in 1947.
On the disabled list, mezzo-soprano Anita Rashvelishvili has withdrawn from a couple of upcoming performances. In a social media post, Rashvelishvili told followers, "After 2 years of pandemic and a very difficult pregnancy, I felt that I have to be back as soon as possible to be able to support my family and our little angel. But my body is just not working yet."
And on this day, March 7th in 1866, it was the birth of Czech bass Robert Polak. In Nova Hrady, a favorite of Antonin Dvorak, he created the role of Lucifer in Devil and Kate and sang in the premiere of Dvorak's Armida. In 1875, gay French composer Maurice Ravel was born. In 1896, one for George, The Grand Duke, the last operetta, the 14th collaboration between Gilbert and Sullivan, had its world premiere in London. In 1905, the Austrian baritone Walter Hofmeier was born. He created the role of the Count in Richard Strauss's Capriccio and sang in the premiere of Emmerich Kallmann's Kaiserin Josephine. In 1929, German baritone Claudio Nicolai was born. He created the role of Stolzius in Die Soldaten, a favorite of Weston, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
In 1931, one of my favorites, Maddy Mesplé, the French soprano, was born. She died about 2 years ago. Happy birthday to British countertenor Michael Chance, born this day in 1935. And happy birthday to friend of the show, Quinn Kelsey, born in Honolulu.
And that is your 2-minute drill.
Just a little bit of the high acid, like champagne vinegar voice of Maddy Mesplé. That was from Claude Debussy's Chanson de Jeunesse. That was Pierrot with pianist Gabriel Tacchino. one of my favorite voices, but one of those voices that you don't share with other people because they don't get it. But if you get it, you and me, we're friends. So.
Oh, Anna, what are we going to do with you? How are we going to unpack this one?
What is there to do? What is there to do? It's not hard. It's not hard. Everybody's like, oh, she's losing all her jobs. Well, you know what? In the amended words of my friend Whitney Houston, I feel nothing. She's deserved this. She has deserved this for a long time. She has been anti-vax. She has acted like blackface is not that big of a deal. She said sexual assault wasn't real. This is just the latest in a long line of things. If she wants to go and sing for her audience of one at the opera house that she supported in Donetsk, fine. I don't care if I never see her on stage in the West at all ever again. Ashley out.
I mean,
there it is.
I agree with Ashley so much, but like what's sort of frustrating about it is that now this is what gets her canceled. This, yes, this is horrendous, but she has a lot of marks against her, and it finally took this for Peter Gelb to say, okay, we'll find somebody else. Sonia Yoncheva.
Why not? Well, I did hear some people give some pushback and be like, oh, well, maybe she's afraid to speak out. Maybe she's afraid to say, girl, she is nothing if not protected. Okay, A, she has not lived there in a long time. B, she has dual citizenship with another country. She's fine. She's fine. Yeah. She's going to be okay.
So she was really being set up right as like the face of the Met over the last 5 to 7 years basically. Let's assume that she's gone, she's not coming back. So who is the Met putting on that poster? Who is going to be the next face of the Met?
Ryan Speedo Green, apparently. No, I'm not even kidding you.
No,
I think so.
I don't think you're joking. I think.
But I mean, this goes to the first item of the drill, and it actually comes from a article from the New York Times. Too close to Putin, institutions vet artists uncomfortably. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has led organizations to reconsider who performs and forces them to confront questions about free speech and policing political views. And there were so many stories that came out these past couple of weeks. Even, Fox, put their 2 cents in saying that, this is free speech, and we're attacking free speech by canceling Anna Netrebko. Music is dying.
It must be important, right? When Fox News is all over it. Look. When was the last time Fox News cared about opera? They didn't. That guy, that clown, just wanted to write something about cancel culture.
I do think that there is something for like not for Anna Netrebko, because honestly, she should have been kicked out so long ago. I think this is the intersection of a lot of points here, right? We've talked a lot about like trying to remove these big stars who can do whatever they want, who will still get jobs, your Levines, Placido Domingos. Anna Netrebko is not a sexual predator, but like everything else on her list, we should not be venerating a single person to the degree that we do and allow her to get away with things like this when something untoward is going on. What I will say is for some others who don't have the same clout as an Anna Netrebko, there is a material risk to being in Russia and saying something against Putin. And I do think we need to keep that in mind. The free speech issue is, for me, not that big of a deal. I think the problem is like, what if you can't go home? What if you get locked up? What if you get killed even? That is something to consider. And there is a little bit of precedent for stuff like this in the opera world. I think of around World War I, especially at the Metropolitan Opera, where a lot of German operas and German singers were not allowed to sing because they were the enemy during that war. Now, I will say it's a little bit more clear-cut who's the bad guy in this particular conflict than in World War I. But there is something lost there when you do feel the need to demand something of singers who might not be in a position to safely say something against someone like Vladimir Putin, who is, crazy enough to attack a sovereign nation next door for no reason, essentially. So I do have some sympathy there. It's a complicated issue. I do think that I support Anna Netrebko specifically being off stage. Even Gergiev, I think, should probably be off stage at this point in time. But I think there are plenty of smaller performers all the way down the line who I'm more uncomfortable. I think it's worth inquiring and really looking into our souls and saying, are we okay with demanding this of someone who doesn't have these kinds of protections?
I agree with you. And believe me, I could yell about Anna for hours and hours. We should probably just have an episode where I just yell about her. But
Yelling about Anna.
Here's starring Ashley Hargrave. No one else is on because no one needs to hear this. No, here's what I'll say. Is that like the reason that I get so worked up about this with her specifically, I don't have this feeling that like every artist should take a huge stand. I don't feel like everybody should pick a side. Okay. And people are talking about free speech. Number one, that's an American concept. So, you know, we can't really hold people to those same standards if they're not American citizens or they're not working in American houses. The thing that is the rub with her particularly is that she has been so incredibly outspoken and has taken so many stands on so many hot button issues. She's been running her mouth for 15 years. So for her to come back and say, oh, art shouldn't be political, musicians shouldn't have to take a stand. It's that double standard that really gets me worked up.
Absolutely.
And that goes across the board, right? You look at Ovechkin, who plays for hockey for the Washington Capitals. He tried to use the same logic to say, look, as sports people, we're not political. It's like, bro, you haven't just watched the Olympics, Ovechkin, because you played in the Olympics. You know that sports is political. We know that art is political. That is part and parcel of what this business is. And you better find a way to thread that needle and talk about peace and freedom and humanity in an eloquent and simple way.
Just like Jonas Kaufmann.
That was not elegant or simple. I'm still trying to figure that out, and I can't.
So basically, this statement, I will say, we have been unable to find the original German, because it seems to have been taken from a French website. We sort of use Google Translate and some other translating to like get through, and it really does not make sense. Like, you get to the end and you're like, I think he's against war in general. But he goes on like these long tangents about political art and capriccio, and then he says at one point, does this mean that one must remain neutral in order to not risk one's success? In other words, vici darte? No, certainly not. As an artist, one should be aware of where the respective strength of one's ability lies. And I'm like, so what? Excuse me, Mr. Kaufmann, what are you saying?
I think what he's saying is it do be like that sometimes. I think that's what he's saying.
We'll put a link to the article, at least in French, that we found in the show notes to see if any
Please help
out
us.
there can try and help the brothers and sisters out at the OBS.
Oh my God!
Back here in the U.S., Michigan Opera Theater, 50 years young, has changed its name to Detroit Opera. Brand new logo, brand new rebound. Listen,
do we know why?
I'll talk you through it. So first of all, as someone who was raised in Michigan, this is a really meaningful gesture, because the fact of the matter is that Michigan Opera Theater as a company did not speak to the state of Michigan. There are folks up there in the Upper Peninsula. There are folks at Grand Rapids Opera who definitely don't think that Michigan Opera Theater is speaking for them, or universities across the country. The company now, it really is, to its credit, is focused on the citizens of Detroit and how it can provide art, community, engagement, and uplift so many different voices that are in this much maligned city of Detroit. It's a great move. I'm surprised it took so long. It sounds like they wanted to tie it in with this 50th anniversary. P.S. That logo, it is classic and fresh, and it's got the red and white colors straight out of the Detroit Red Wings playbook. I love it.
Yeah, and now it matches the other major cultural institutions of the city, the Detroit Symphony, the Detroit Public Theater, so everything now matches.
Exactly. Michigan Opera Theater was the only Tier 1 opera company at Opera America. The companies are sorted by budget. The only Tier 1 company that had a state in its name as opposed to a city.
Interesting.
And I think that's really telling as to why it was time for a change. P.S. So the Detroit Opera, the season continues back at the Detroit Opera House. in April with this new production of La Boheme, directed by artistic director Yuval Sharon, in which does nothing to the show other than plays Act 4 first, and then Act 3, and then Act 2, and then Act 1. I think it's basically a straight-up production. There's a bit of dialogue that's been added.
We talked about this when they
such
announced
a
this.
simple gesture.
Classic Yuval Sharon.
It really is. It's such a simple gesture, and it's going to absolutely turn that show on its head.
Literally.
Ashley, we're going to let you round it off with Anita.
Good for my girl and secret best friend in my heart, even though she doesn't really know it, Anita Rashvelashvili, for coming out publicly and being like, you know what, I feel this pressure to come back, but I'm not ready yet. And as you would remember, true OBS fans, from our Mother's Day episode in 2020, go back to episode 215, you will hear a lot of interviews with a lot of women in the art form who feel this intense pressure to go back, either because they feel they need to prove that they need to make money for their families, but good for her for saying, you know what? No, not yet. I mean, and she is a beast. She works so hard and she's fully ferocious. And so for her to have the soundness of mind and this is going to be a weird word here, but cocksuredness to be like, you know what? I'm not ready to come back to this yet. I'm really proud of her for that. And I want her to be an example for more women in the industry.
Let's wrap this show up.
Good call. Bad call. On Opera Box Score.
Good call, bad call is how we're going to take you home. Whoever you are, wherever you are, however you're listening. Kick it off, as always, with Oliver Camacho.
Well, I guess this is the week that we talk about the Met. The March 14th benefit concert that they're doing for Ukraine is going to have the Beethoven 9, the last movement of that, the choral movement. I think it has who is in that? Elsa Vandenhever and I think Jamie Barton. I'm not sure if they've announced the soloist yet, but anyway, they literally whipped that together today. Like earlier today there was a picture of Peter Gelb taking a picture with the Ukrainian
UN ambassador. And they must have just agreed to do this, and all the artists in chorus and orchestra are going to be putting on a concert a week from today, which is a really quick turnaround for an opera company. So congratulations to them. And meanwhile, they have one of the hottest tickets on their hand right now. Lisa Davidson singing Ariadne, with Brenda Ray, friend of the show, singing Zibrinetta, and Isabel Leonard, supposedly outstanding as the composer, and Brandon Ivanovich as Bacchus. I mean, that's a killer cast.
Weston Williams.
I would like to celebrate Chicago's very, very brief false spring that we had over the weekend. It was 68 degrees on Saturday. I got my bike out of storage for the first time. I plugged in my little cell phone holster to the handlebars, and I just blasted Shostakovich's 8th Symphony as I pedaled down the streets of my neighborhood. The feeling of power and freedom was indescribable. And then it snowed the next day.
You are such a strange young man. Ashley Hardgrave.
Listen, I just need us to all take a moment and give thanks for the air fryer and the joy that it has brought to each and every one of our kitchens and our lives. I have a combination microwave, convection oven, air fryer, and it has changed my culinary game. I love a crispy piece of food, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Amen.
So in this time that we're in, where everything is on fire and we're scared of everything, just remember you've got an air fryer in your kitchen, and you can make something that's crunchy. Also, SaveTheChildren.org, and you can donate to kids in Ukraine.
Earlier, I was giving props to Detroit Opera, putting opera in the D, and guess what I found? If you're on the podcast, you won't be able to see it. It's my old Detroit Red Wings hockey puck. Look at that red and white logo.
Well,
on the back.
we're on the video. We can barely see it. It's so scratched up, so it's
There you
fine.
go. It says "Raise your hands." It's got the octopus, which is one of the Detroit Red Wings mascots. That's it for this week's edition of America's Talk Radio Show about opera. Our announcer, he's Norm Waddell. normwaddell.com. If you're watching on TDO, make sure you subscribe to the podcast to get our full show On Stitcher and Spotify, you click follow. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, just hit the plus sign. Send us a voice memo. Email us your hot takes, operaboxscore@gmail.com. Get your voice heard. You're going to get an OBS beer coaster and an OBS lapel pin just for sharing your hot take. Our creative consultant is Oliver Camacho. Our audio and video editor is Weston Williams. For your co-hosts, Matt Cummings and Ashley Hardgrave, I'm George Cedarquist, asking you to continue the conversation about opera while you name drop Kazimir Pulaski. Just look it up, people. We're back with an all-new show next week when we get the brackets going in our annual March Madness of Opera series. Plus, you get more opera headlines, more hot takes, and more David McVicar. Join us